You don't launch an AI project. You launch a transformation. And no transformation survives on talent alone. It thrives when each person, in each role, knows exactly how to wield their part of the machinery, not in isolation, but in sync. So begins the great choreography. An AI project is not just code and data. It is a human endeavor, cross-functional, high-stakes, fast-moving, and profoundly disruptive. It needs scientists and stewards, translators and governors, whisperers and warriors. And if you expect these people to perform without training, you're not building AI, you're building a house of cards. Here's how you train your orchestra. 1. The AI project manager, holding chaos by the collar. They don't just manage tasks. They manage contradictions. This is the person who lives at the intersection of everything: the business's need for impact, the model's need for iteration, the regulator's need for traceability, and the user's need for clarity. Their day swings from sprint velocity charts to explaining model maturity to the C-suite, and back again. But this is not the project management of the past. This is AI's frontline. They must be trained to translate fuzzy strategic intent into phased, trackable AI objectives. Manage experiments without becoming the experiment. Use CPMAI as a compass, not a cage. Align 6 workstreams without losing velocity or vision. They don't ask, "What's the deadline?" They ask, "What's the risk if we rush this phase?" 2. The data scientist, making the invisible predictable. They hunt for patterns in haystacks, but only the right patterns matter. Too often, they're siloed, rewarded for accuracy, punished for delays, and misunderstood by every business stakeholder. But in a real AI project, success is not a great ROC curve. It's whether the model makes the business smarter, ethically, reliably, and at scale. They must be trained to engineer features with context, not just correlation. Design experiments tied to business KPIs, not academic ones. Detect and mitigate bias before it bakes into production. Partner, not just present, with the PM, the ethics lead, and the business owner. They don't just ask, "How accurate is it?" They ask, "Who could this hurt?" 3. The machine learning engineer, turning brilliance into product. They turn ideas into APIs. Notebooks into systems. Hope into uptime. They are the bridge from research to reality. They make sure that what works in a prototype can survive the cruel, ever-changing conditions of production. They automate retraining, track versions, build pipelines, and pray less, because they test more. They must be trained to build reproducible model environments. Monitor live models like a cardiologist monitors vitals. Design systems that can fail gracefully, and recover fast. Collaborate with security, compliance, and DevOps from day one. Their job is not to be fast. It's to make fast safe. 4. The data engineer, building roads the model can trust. They don't get thanked unless they mess up. But without them, nothing moves. They are the custodians of quality, structure, lineage, and flow. They don't just feed the models, they fuel the entire pipeline. And they know, bad data is not just a nuisance. It's a liability. They must be trained to design pipelines that adapt to evolving schemas and sources. Integrate structured and unstructured data from legacy to cloud. Implement data governance that satisfies both regulators and analysts. Treat each new data field as a potential ethical grenade. They don't ask, "Can we collect it?" They ask, "Should we?" 5. The business analyst, product owner, making AI matter. They don't build models. They build belief. These are the people who know the pain of the front line, the pressure of the C-suite, and the politics of getting things adopted. Without them, AI stays in the lab. With them, it solves real problems. They must be trained to identify use cases with not just high ROI, but high feasibility. Evaluate model outputs against actual business outcomes. Frame value stories that travel from boardroom to shop floor. Be fluent in the language of maybe, because AI never promises certainty. They don't just ask, what did the model say? They ask, what will my people believe? 6. The responsible AI lead, keeping the soul in the system. This is the conscience of the project. They don't wear a cape, but they save you from disaster. They ask the uncomfortable questions. They write policies no one reads, until the breach. They force trade-offs before regulators or journalists do. They must be trained to audit models for fairness, transparency, and proportionality. Spot proxy variables and latent biases. Create decision frameworks that favor explanation over perfection. Build rollback strategies, not just deployment plans. They don't ask, can this be done faster? They ask, will we regret this later? 7. The MLOPs, DevOps engineer, the invisible force of stability. When everything works, they get no credit. When anything breaks, they get the call. They automate, scale, monitor, and shield. Their world is C, CD, Docker, versioning, rollback, security scans, and dashboard alerts. They are the keepers of AI in production, and the last defense against chaos. They must be trained to build and maintain ML pipelines like surgical tools. Monitor for drift, degradation, and downtime. Establish alerts, logs, and fail-safes. Balance speed with security, and traceability with performance. Their badge says Ops. But what they protect is trust. 8. The change management lead, making sure AI has a pulse. If users don't adopt the solution, it's just expensive math. This person owns the so what. They understand behavior, fear, friction, and fatigue. They create materials, trainings, and stories that make the model feel human, not hostile. They must be trained to map resistance and build empathy into rollout. Design user journeys that build confidence and insight. Create two-way communication loops, not just newsletters. Prove that adoption is not the end. It's the test. They don't ask, are we live? They ask, are we believed? 9. The compliance and legal officer, standing at the line. They don't slow you down, they keep you from crashing. Their job isn't to say, no, it's to make sure that what you build today can stand up tomorrow, in court, in audit, and under pressure. They must be trained to identify the regulatory red zones early, not late. Create sign-off checklists tied to every CPMAI phase. Write policy that keeps pace with AI's sprint cycles. Translate risk into decisions, not paralysis. They don't ask, is this legal? They ask, is this defensible? 10. The executive sponsor, the gravity that holds it together. They may never see a dataset, but without them, none of it happens. They fund, shield, advocate, and, sometimes, evangelize. But they must also know when to ask better questions, and when to say no to their own demands. They must be trained to frame AI as capability, not a buzzword. Make governance non-negotiable. Sponsor teams, not just tools. Protect the budget, but also the ethics. They don't ask, what's the ROI? They ask, what's the risk of not doing this right? Final word, the real stack is human. There is no AI stack without people, and there is no transformation without training. Train not just for skills, but for judgment. Train not just for speed, but for resilience. Train not just the technical team, but the entire ecosystem. Because in the end, AI doesn't succeed because the model was good. It succeeds because the people were ready.